Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Power Law Investor. Today is October 11th, 2024, a Friday. Again, this is not financial advice, it's only for informational purposes. Today, we'll be discussing the recent price action for Kaspa. Is the substantial dip something to be concerned about or worried about? And how can we interpret this in the light of the Power Law trend line? So, as a reminder, the power law, let me just focus on Kaspa today. The power law is simply the trend line of the price data relative to time in the log-log space. It is a line in the log-log space with a very high R squared. So again, here's the blue line represents the price data in the log-log space, and the orange line is the trend line and has a high R squared value that we determine through linear regression, and the equation of this line is as this. When we convert it into the linear domain, that is linear in the x and linear in the y, we end up with a curve like this. And using this equation, we can project forward into time, and assuming that the trend line holds, we know what the price is likely to be 6 or 12 months into the future. Again, this doesn't predict every fluctuation, it's just the trend averaged out. So let's first take a look at what the price is right now, as Bitcoin is just below 63,000 and Kaspa is trading around 13, just under 14 cents. And if you click on this over here, we'll see that Kaspa had dropped down way the last 7 days. We had gone down below 12 cents, below 13 cents, about 12, a little over 12 and a half cents. And now we've bounced up to about 13.9, a little bit of a recovery there in the market. So previously, using the power law regressions or the power law regression that I had developed, we had estimated that this green line over here, let me just zoom out so you guys can get a clear view. This is what's happened. And then zooming in over here, this green line, which is a 50% discount to the trend line over here. So the trend line says we should be about 28.5 cents. So this is about half that price, right? Roughly. So around 13, almost 14 cents. And we should have not jumped below this line. So this was a line in the sand, and previously we'd only had wicks that would touch that minus 50% trend line and then bounce up from there. This time, though, currently we are still below that trend line. If we zoom in, that trend line is about 14, it's around 14 cents or so, and 14 cents and a quarter, and we are below that, but we've stayed below that, right? So what I thought was a reasonable statistical level that we were likely not to cross has been crossed. And so now, in respect of this, does this really change our hypothesis on whether we think Kaspa is still following this power law line or not? And I'm going to present both a positive perspective and a negative perspective on this. And then finally, I'll conclude with my opinion, which I believe incorporates both of these. And then you should make your own assessment as to how you proceed. And I'll give you a couple of different approaches on how you might want to consider going forward. Okay. The first thing, however, I'd like to say is that this behavior was not unexpected. All right. For those of you who've been following my videos, I had already set limit orders at just above 14 cents and just above 13 cents. And the reason for that is that I felt that there was a reasonable chance that we would get a WTF opportunity, right? And even though we are following the trend line on average, it doesn't mean that we can't have dips way below for whatever reason. This is crypto, right? And you're going to see a lot of volatility. And anytime you think a price can't happen, it often does. Now, is that an opportunity or something to be scared of? I prefer to look at it as an opportunity. And you guys are familiar with the Kaspa triangle that I've developed, which is this allocation between Kaspa and Bitcoin and cash. And you'll notice that 20% of it is reserved for cash. And the reason for that is for opportunities just like this. So I was able to pick up with these limit orders that I had placed, I was able to pick up Kaspa as it went down. Now, could it have gone down lower? That's right. It could have, but I felt this was a good balance about what it would go till, and I got in just above 13 cents. And as we can see from this graph, we dropped to even lower than that. We were about at 12.69 cents. So that would be even better, but again, this is statistical properties and this is on average. This is not an exact science. However, I will note that the price has bounced up quite a bit from then, right? So right now I'm thinking, oh, this was a good opportunity to buy at a discount. Okay, so let's look at the positive perspective over here, forgetting about these limit orders and so, because I can't predict the futures. This is just statistics. I may have just gotten lucky. It could have gone down a lot more, or it could not have reached those levels at all. What is it that we are in a position now to understand? On the positive side, let's take a look back and let's look at this entirety of the power law. We have 864 days of data. We have the price dropping below the trend line right now, more than it has in the past. Maybe not really in the early years, but mostly where it has dropped in the past. Now, does that mean the power law is invalidated? The R square is pretty good at 0.95, greater than that. That means 95% of the variation to date is explained by this line. Now, the equation of this line has changed. It's become shallower. But even if it continues with this existing line and we bounce back to the trend line, which is our best estimate using all the data we have available so far, we are still expecting returns in an annualized returns of over 600%. Now, if someone gave me that data that I've seen so far and said, okay, based on this, what do I think the future will look like? Yeah, there's a good case that the power law is going to bend some more, but using the entire breadth of the data that we have so far, that is suggesting that we're going to have some pretty fantastic returns. So the assessment here is the returns are going to be, can be fantastic. And using the power law, we have still been able to use all the available data and we still have an excellent R squared fit. So the power law is valid in that sense. It is bending because the new data is coming in and it's pulling the power law math down, but the R squared fit is still fantastic. The next question that I'd ask is there something that has happened in Kaspa that is unique to Kaspa that we're unaware of? And from what I could tell, no. You know, we have the KRC20 launch and then maybe some associated factors around that. But as far as I can tell, there's nothing that I've heard about that there's been a big technical issue, something structurally has gone wrong. Kaspa's price action has just not been performing as we expected, and we don't know the reason. And so that suggests to me that we don't know what's going on, whatever that reasoning is. But from the surface, to the extent that I can dig in, and I'm guessing if you're listening to this, you also have done your own research, that we're just not sure what might be driving some of this price action. So from the pro perspective or the positive side, yep, we've still got a trend line. We don't think anything wrong has happened. We might just come back to the trend line, or that's a likely outcome to happen. On the negative side, Kaspa is falling relative to Bitcoin, right? So if you look at this data over here, this is the Kaspa USD, this is the Kaspa Bitcoin ratio. And you can see that from June, we were at the same level we were in June. We went up, and then from June 29th, we've been going down. We had a few bounces along the way, but we've been going down. So Bitcoin has been outperforming Kaspa. Now, is something wrong with Kaspa? Is Bitcoin doing particularly well for some reason? Relative to Kaspa, we can't say for sure, but that's what the data here clearly is showing, that we are in this downtrend, and that downtrend has steepened considerably over the last 20 days or so. And not only that, we're also trailing the altcoin market in general. This is Kaspa market cap divided by total 3 minus USDT minus USDC. So that's the Kaspa market cap divided by basically the altcoin market cap minus, so it doesn't include Bitcoin and Ethereum, and we've excluded stables from it also. And you can see that we've had this big drop, right? We used, again, that level was that we last read this level was around the 21st of June. So those would seem to be relatively negative, but I'll throw a little bit of positive into it, that this is not unusual, right? We've seen these sorts of dips happen before. Shoot, how do I do this? Right. So if you look at this, all right. So if we look previously, we've had dips of about 47%, from where we were on the peaks, right? So compared to that, what we're seeing right now is about 26%. So this is not unheard of. This is in the altcoin market. And if you again compare relative to Bitcoin, well, we've been all the way down to about, again, 45%. And compared to where we are now, well, we're still down by about 26%. So this sort of stuff has happened before. That doesn't mean that maybe this time is different, but it's just saying that we have experienced something like this before. And that should also maybe help us understand, like, hey, how serious this is right now. It's not an unheard of event, right? But again, I think the most concerning thing probably is that, hey, we've sort of bounced through this minus 50% discount. Now, again, this is if you've been in crypto for a while or also just traded stocks, every now and then you're going to get a WTF price. And then you got to decide whether you think it's a really good price, you have that conviction to go into it, or something has broken. And no one can answer that question definitively. But on average, in my opinion, is that I still think the power law is doing a pretty good job of representing the price motion. And I think it's going to keep on working in the future. I can't say that for sure, but that is why we have this DCA approach, as well as having these limit orders placed if we get these shots of opportunity, right? And as you can see, I definitely took those, and you can go back in the previous videos and see that I've already put these limit orders in place. Now, I've also put another one with whatever cash is still available at 12.07. I don't know if we're going to get that, but in case we do, I want to deploy my cash for an opportunity like that. So now that we're seeing this, what do we expect from the price action going forward? If we go back on trend, over a year, you can expect about 601%. But I think there are a couple of different ways you can play this. The first way is played the same way that I am, in which you're taking a daily DCA of whatever amount is and just buy in daily, right? That is going to give you the most exposure. When the price goes high, you buy less. When the price goes low, you get more. And you get more when the price is low, and so overall it pushes your average cost down, dollar cost averaging. But you may want to be a little more cautious. Maybe that's your nature, and you think like, hey, maybe something really is broken with this whole Kaspa thing right now. And in that case, what I suggest is that you might wait, sort of a more momentum-based approach is that you can wait if, again, it's a big if and when the price starts going up. So maybe you'll think like, hey, I'm going to wait until it hits this minus 40% trend line, which now is trailing at about 16 and $0.163, right? It's a little above 16 cents. So maybe you want to wait and say, okay, let the market stabilize. Whatever's going to happen is going to happen. And then if it comes back again, then I'll buy in. The advantage for that is that it takes less psychological energy because you're not buying when it's right at the bottom, and that, sometimes takes balls of steel. On the other hand, you're also going to make less return, but it could be a great strategy too, because you're going to make north of 400% anyways, just eyeballing it. So which is going to be a fantastic return. So if you waited until we reach 16 cents, is it really that different from buying it at 13 cents or 14 cents? Not really, but maybe it'll be easier for you. So I just wanted to get across some of the different nuances that I have been thinking about in terms of using the power law to make these Kaspa investments. I hope this is useful. Again, everyone should do their own research and figure out their own risk levels that they're comfortable with. And I wish you the best of luck. If you have future questions, you can just put them inside the comments and I'll try and get to them. And I'll be providing an update again next week. So all the best and cheers, and thanks for listening.